Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikol Murphy, co-founder of NC Blogger Network and blogger over at momcomplicated.com. And I would like to welcome you to Blogging411, where we get together every Wednesday night to talk about blogging for 30 minutes. We are excited to have our very special guest, Lisa Frame, with us tonight. And I'm sorry if I get a little giggly because I have been waiting to meet her for a really long time, and I'm kind of spazzy about it. But before we get started, I would like to let my co-host and our very special guest introduce themselves. So, Allison, why don't we go first, since we like to go in ABC order here.
And I am ABC. It's perfect. Allison Barrett Carter. I'm ABC. I am also the co-founder of the North Carolina Blogger Network. I've been a blogger for about 5-6 years now. I'm a freelance writer, content strategist, and I do blog consultations.
Lisa, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lisa Frame. You know me over at adailypinch.com, where I blog about a pinch of this and a pinch of that, just really whatever comes to mind. I've been blogging since 2002, freelance writer, traditional writing in my process of my first nonfiction book, and I do not only social content strategy, but I also do influencer marketing and community management.
Oh, you're just so fabulous. Every time I pull up your blog, which I just recently found when we started this network, I don't want to get too gushy, but I grab my laptop. Usually I read them at my computer, and I grab my laptop and I sit on the couch and kind of pretend like, we're in the living room together. So
that's excellent.
Hopefully that's not scary or weird, right? No,
it's not. And I write with a really strong first-person narrative. I write like I'm talking to you, and I want to bring you in. It's my cozy little world.
Yay! Well, it's working. I love it.
Thank you.
So tonight we're talking about scheduling your social media, specifically using Hootsuite and Sprout Social.
Yes. And
I definitely want to get into the word schedule first, because I think it still causes a little bit of in people. And so let's talk about scheduling. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it real? Can we even assign the word good and bad? Lisa, why don't we go with you first, and we can just kind of talk about how we feel about the word schedule.
I think scheduling's gotten a very bad name. Of course, scheduling. Okay, all right. So I'm going to take it back. We're going to go back to 1998 when I met my husband in a chat room, what I call the original Twitter. There was no way of scheduling anything then. It was very raw. It was very connective. And even when I was first on Twitter in 2007. That's how it was. We were just talking to each other. Nobody was using it really to market anything. But as time goes on, we all, with our blogs and what have you, we started sharing our content. But I have a lot of readers in Australia. I can't be up at 3 a.m. to share content with them when they're awake. So I found these great tools that would allow me to schedule posts. And it's not like link vomit. So many people, that's all they do. It's like 50 links an hour. This is 1 or 2 links an hour at most, but I'm coming on and I'm giving you actual conversation because I still like to talk on Twitter. I like old school Twitter.
Allison, how do you feel about it?
Oh, it's great. In theory, I'm terrible at doing it. So I think that one of the things, there are a couple of facets to scheduling that I always try to keep in mind. The first is exactly what Lisa just said. Like, you can put yourself out there at times when you can't actually be online to share your content, to share who you are, but then you still have to fill in the gaps between your scheduling to have those conversations. So when people try to connect with you, you just have to connect back with them. You have to talk to them. You can't go into all scheduling, but you can use a structured, strategic scheduling to really be around when you can't be around. It can free you from your smartphone, I believe, in theory. Again, I'm terrible at doing it. Yeah. One thing that I did have a question for Lisa on is there's been a lot of back and forth about whether or not scheduled posts on social media get less traction because of various algorithms or back-end equations. For example, for a long time, the word on the street was you cannot schedule with a third party to Facebook because then Facebook will not show that post and not care about that post. But someone just 2 weekends ago told me that that actually is not the case anymore. And if you were to use Hootsuite or Sprout Social to schedule to somewhere like Facebook, it gets the same consideration as any other scheduled post.
Well, first on Facebook, I don't think anybody gets any traction anymore. That's just my opinion. With the way they've changed their algorithm and moved everything around, nobody is getting page views unless you're giving them money to sponsor that and you're targeting your demographics. But you can also actually go into Facebook now and schedule posts in advance. So I do that as well. I'm really bad at it. I'm really bad about scheduling content. But they get the same traction. Sometimes they get more traction. And it really, I think it depends on the day and the time and what everybody is liking or not liking on their timeline, because you are definitely seeing a change in what you see based on things that you're liking that other people share.
So does it matter if you go through a third-party schedule for Facebook, or should you stick with Facebook's scheduler? No, not really. No?
Not really, in my opinion, and it's because of the way they've written the algorithm. It's so hard to get page views. I'm not seeing much of a difference.
Okay, good. Well, that's good information to have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's talk a little bit about what we should schedule and things that we should not schedule, kind of, in a broad sense, just general things. Like, what would you schedule normally on an average day?
I schedule like past blog posts that are relevant, like seasonal blog posts. So I bring those back out and I schedule those. Or it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month and I support Charlotte Radiology and the work that they do. So I've been sharing all of their events and I have them scheduled a few times here during the day. And then Charlotte Beer Festival, we're having a hops festival here. I'm sharing theirs, and a couple of posts that are each written differently to promote these things that I feel strongly in. So it's a mixture. Mine isn't all just links, and sometimes I'll have a stream of random thoughts, and I will just schedule those because you don't want me to dump all of that on you at once.
I would have to agree that I'm not a great scheduler either, unless it is something like, Blogging411. I feel comfortable doing that since it's at the same time every week. We always know it's coming. But the soon as you put me on the spot to schedule something, I'm like, I don't know what I want to say next Thursday. And I've heard someone that they ask a Friday lunch question. Every Friday around lunchtime, they ask a question, and they've scheduled all their questions for the entire year. 52 questions, it's totally scheduled. And so that kind of freaks me out.
When you do a Twitter party, you schedule your questions. You write your script and you schedule your questions to come out at certain times, and you know that that's coming. So it keeps you on track. That's another way for great scheduling for bloggers who are hosting those parties.
Yes.
Before we jump on to talk about the two specific platforms we promised people we would talk about tonight, and I'm dying to learn more about Sprout Social especially, one of the things that I've heard people talk about a lot and that I get kind of nervous about is that, say you schedule stuff in advance, and then something happens in the news, or a tragedy happens, and now all of a sudden you've got all these scheduled posts in there while social media has taken a trajectory. And there are obviously some big examples of major companies that have been wildly burned by this in the past. Do you find, Lisa, that that's a problem, or is that like so rare that happens that you can just, when that starts to happen, run into your scheduled post and just unpublish or unschedule? How do you navigate that?
It's rare, but you have to stay hyper aware and cognizant of what's going on in social media. And so if I see that, or breaking news, because I have breaking news pop up on my laptop. So if I'm working, I see it and it pops up on my phone, then I can go in and kill any posts right then, immediately.
That's really great. Now, what are you using? How do you get only breaking news? Because I accidentally signed up for all the notifications that the CDC was putting out through Twitter, and they seemed to have gotten like a really brand new, very excited social media manager, and they were sending out notices, like 14 notices in a row, and I was like, the world is going to end! Like, oh my gosh. So what are you using to get
I use BBC Breaking News.
Okay.
And Al Jazeera America.
Okay.
Yeah. They break it, and it's out.
So I guess what the key for people to understand is that even if you schedule your posts in advance, you still have to kind of have your pulse on what's going on so you don't look like a jerk when everybody's talking about a horrible tragedy that's occurred and you're like, here are some Christmas cookies I made, right? So
Yeah.
you still have to kind of stay on top of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And you
And
can't
that's when I'll actually take my accounts radio silent. If something major's going on, if I don't have anything to contribute, I leave it free.
That's great. That's good advice. Okay, so now we can talk about the actual platform. Now that Allison Barrett Carter has had all of her personal questions answered.
Well, we are here for you, Allison. Sometimes I do feel like this is like my weekly therapy and like education. I'm like, okay, I have these questions and I finally get to answer them or ask them. All right, so Lisa, tell us about Hootsuite and Sprout Social specifically, because you brought those two companies up in a members-only Facebook group that we have for North Carolina Blogger Network, and you had mentioned that those two are kind of your go-to. So let us know, let us have it. Tell us all about it.
Okay, so Sprout Social, when I first signed up, it was because I wanted to use Sprout Social. I was like, it's brand new, I'm going to test it out. They gave you 30 days free maybe in the beginning. And Hootsuite, I was using it because of client work already. So I signed up to use it for client work because you can add other people onto your organization, just like you can with Sprout Social. And honestly, for a lot of it is a matter of aesthetics. If you want everything that's at you coming into just one message stream, then that is Sprout Social, because that's the only thing on your page is your @replies, your direct messages, and who followed you. You go over to your feeds tab to see your stream that's actually live and rolling and what people are tweeting. With Hootsuite, everything is laid out on a grid across from you, which Hootsuite is great for Twitter parties and live chats. That's what I use, or to follow a hashtag. But you don't necessarily just want to be in that inbox. You want to see everything at once. So Sprout Social can do the same thing, but sometimes I want to see my feed and the hashtag all together. So really it's a matter of personal preference. And that's why I use both of them.
I've noticed that when I've been at conferences and I'm following the Twitter handle at conferences, there seems to be a bit of a lag when I'm on and I only have the free version of Hootsuite, but there actually seems to be a bit of a time lag between when stuff is posted and when it will show up in my Hootsuite, capture. Is that just because I have old devices, or is that something that everybody experiences, or how does that work? I mean,
that's something we all experience because it's based on the API, and Hootsuite has to make so many calls to Twitter's API, and you're only limited to so many calls per hour.
Makes sense. Thank you.
It's been a while since I've used Sprout Social, but I thought that communicating and assigning tasks between members of our group was easier with Sprout Social than Hootsuite. It just seemed, and it might be the aesthetics and the UI, but it just seemed like they got there and it was easier to keep track and kind of really know what was going on.
Hootsuite's a little busy, but it's great if you want to have, if you say you're a big brand, you're Procter & Gamble, or you're a blogger and you've got 5 blogs. You can have all of those laid out on tabs that you switch between to monitor everything. And so it's actually very easy for you to do that. And because it's busier, the UI is definitely busier. It creates, if you don't do well with that, it creates a less than optimal user experience.
Yeah.
Some of us just like to be able to focus on that one stream. Yeah.
So with Hootsuite, is there any benefit to upgrading to pay more for the Pro, or how do you feel about, again, I've never been in the Pro, so I don't know. I'm just using the free one, and that's what I do all my scheduling out of. And when they started to add Google Plus into Hootsuite so I could now schedule with Google Plus, I was like, done. I feel like this is all I need. But what am I missing by not having it?
With the Pro, you have enhanced analytics. There's only a certain amount of analytics that you can you have with Hootsuite Pro, and after that you have to buy points from them in order to run reports, and each report is anywhere from 20 to 50 points. But you also get 50 social profiles. So say you want your personal profiles, your blog, your Twitter, your G+, all of that, then you get all of that versus the 3. So if your business partner, if Allison or Nikol is on vacation, then if she needs you to monitor her streams, then you're sharing that organization and you can monitor hers in case she wants to, be social media free for a few days in case anything happens.
I see that look in Nicole's eyes.
Yeah, I want you to tweet for her.
Tweet for me, Allison.
Allison Barrett C is the best ever.
Yeah, exactly. So I really like Hootsuite for a couple of different reasons. When you are scheduling, and especially when you start to get into the habit of scheduling, I have never used the spreadsheet upload option. I've just gone ahead and individually scheduled my tweets, but when you go, you can view everything that you have scheduled, and it's really nice because it'll show the icon of the account that you're gonna, that you are tweeting from, and there you've got this big picture of how many tweets are going out, and you can kind of get a feel of like, this is how many links I did, this is how many blog posts, and you can see. And then I've also, when I've initially set up things to tweet out, I'll go ahead and use their auto scheduler to see where they think that those tweets should go, and then maybe I'll edit them a little bit based on what I know about my audience. But those are really great educational pieces that if you don't really know what to do, you can use that. So what you do is you go ahead and you type out whatever tweet you want, and then you hit auto schedule, and then when you go into your scheduling tab, you can see when they've scheduled it for and decide if that's what you want.
How do they determine when to auto schedule it? Because I like to argue with technology all the time, so they'll try to tell me when to schedule it. I'm like, no, that is not when I need to schedule. How do they determine that? Like, are they looking at your analytics for you, or
they're looking
so
at your analytics?
Know more than me.
Yeah, the machines are taking over.
Goodness. All right.
And remember, you don't have to do that, but it is a suggestion. And, I like to sometimes schedule things instead of like 125, like let's put it at 123. That just seems so much more spontaneous than 125.
I do odd numbers like that all of the time. And I know that my husband goes to lunch every day at 11:30. Every day at work. So if there's something I've thought I've had, sometimes I'll just tweet it and tag him because I know he's going to see it. It's easier than texting him.
That is so funny.
So to Sprout Social, what kind of support do they provide? As somebody who doesn't know anything really about Sprout Social, what sort of benefits do they provide and support can they give me that might be unique?
Sprout has developed what they call their smart inbox system. And so now with Sprout, when I look at that message feed of my @replies, my direct messages, and new followers, I can not only assign from that new smart inbox, but then I can check it once it's done and it disappears from that inbox. And then I have statistics off to the right that shows me this is taken care of. And this is what you've done over the last 90 days. This is your growth in this area. And for me, I like gold stars and I like checking things off a list. And it tells me how many remaining items are left, and I can actually break it down to the day. How many are left for that day?
That is an amazing, because
if you're doing it.
Yeah, it's taking so much of the mental energy away from you. It's just laying it out there for you. I really like that.
Yeah, and I can also, with that inbox, mark it if it's a sales lead. So if I'm ever doing any business development for someone, I don't know if you can do that with Hootsuite. I don't think you can, but it marks it into that box, and then you can assign it under your tasks on who needs to look at that sales lead. And then, of course, like with Hootsuite, you can report someone for spam, you can block a user, you can unfollow, and with Sprout Social now, you can also see who's not following you. So you can unfollow them, and they tell you people who are tweeting sporadically.
That would be me.
So, well, but if somebody's tweeting once a month, you're like, yeah, no, unfollow. Unless it's somebody really important.
That would also be me. I'm totally kidding.
Let's talk pricing. What are the prices on these, Lisa? Do you have that in front of you?
I do. I'm grandfathered in. I've been on Sprout Social since the beginning. So my account's not available anymore, unfortunately, and it's really a great price. And now it's $59 a month for 10 profiles and 1 user. And so I share that with my business partner. So I think we paid maybe $20 a month total for 2 of us because I was able to add her on. And for us, it's great because we have what we call our brain trust, which is the accounts that we run together. And then we can go into personal mode. So it's just our accounts. So we can set up like our personal Twitter profile under that personal account. And the other one has no idea that it's there. So it's great if you're within a big organization or you have more users to follow. And now I think for 3 users it's up to $500 because their analytics and their back end is so in-depth and they've scaled the usability up so much.
I was going to say, back when I used them, their customer service was just top-notch. Like, it was just instant, instant responses, and then they would follow up and say, like, is everything still working? How are you feeling about that? And that was amazing.
They still are.
Oh, that's great. So I did want to throw a little shout out to Henry Deschamps. He's watching. Hey! And he says, Buffer is also excellent, as well as Viral Tag for Pinterest.
Yes.
And then you can pause scheduled posts on Sprout Social and Buffer. And
yes.
So Buffer and then TweetDeck are also really super popular, but we wanted to try and stick to we're going to be covering other platforms at other times.
I was going to throw it out there for Buffer at the very end, though, because, there's a free option for Buffer and a pay option for Buffer, too, and, it has some neat functionalities that are unique to Buffer that we will definitely have to cover in another Blogging411 show.
Oh, yeah. Buffer's great, and I'm testing out CoSchedule now, where you can go in and draft your blog post and draft pushing some of your social media. I'm on my trial period just to see how I like it, but I'm kind of finicky. I like to be in my WordPress backend pushing things and scheduling it because I still have to go in and add images.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. So, do you personally, for your blog, Lisa, or for any of your clients, do you have a system set up where once the blog post is pushed, then it just automatically goes out to social media? How do you handle that?
I do that through my RSS feed, which is FeedBlitz.
Okay.
So FeedBlitz is a paid service because FeedBurner was basically it's been decommissioned. Eventually, it's going away, and so FeedBlitz is great. I can go in, I can set it up, and not only when I log into that, and here we are talking about our third platform, set up all of my social profiles. I can target whether it goes to my page, if it just goes to my personal Facebook profile, my Twitter, my Google+, and it's also giving me my Alexa score. It takes out a lot of work for me.
Wow. All right, we're going to have another episode on that.
Yeah, this leads me to all the IFTTT questions too that we'll have to do a whole nother show about as well, because I feel
that's coming. That's scheduled in November.
And I think that when we talk about scheduling, there's so many options out there for bloggers and businesses to take the time out of it if you just take that little time to schedule, because there are all these programs now that are out there for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to try and stay super focused because I know that I could take us down 4 different roads right now.
Yes.
But so if you're new, I would suggest, looking at Hootsuite and just kind of getting to know it, since there is a free version, but Sprout Social should have a trial
They
version.
have a trial period, and it's for really robust use.
Yeah.
I'll admit, Sprout is for, Hootsuite is also for really robust use. They're both different.
Right. And if you find yourself where social media is starting to become a time suck and you need to be able to wrangle that, I think that's when you start looking at Sprout Social and making an investment in yourself and your blog.
Yes.
Because if you're spending more than 2 hours on social media, what, a week even? No, a day. Then you're really pulling away from the things that you should be doing. So, just think about that and where you're going to invest in yourself and in your blog, because these are fabulous tools that obviously can take away a lot of time and help you stay focused on what you want to share with your readers and how to grow your blog and your community.
Yeah, so in my mind, in theory, the way that I want to operate for scheduling is I want to schedule out the content that I know I want to go out, like what Lisa was saying. Thoughts that you have that you're going to share down the line, events you want to promote, your blog content, and then use the times that I'm actually active on social media to be active on social media with engagement and conversation and responses. So you have this base layer of scheduled content that is at the core of everything you're doing, and then you're filling in and spending your time doing that true human social interaction, putting the social in your social media, and not just, as Lisa said, link farming it. So
yeah, and
right.
They both queue. So Hootsuite will tell you publish it at this time. Sprout Social also, it's called queue. They both have bookmarklets. I can't speak. So you pull it up to your toolbar.
Mm-hmm.
I have send from Sprout. I have send from Hootsuite. So depending on who I'm working with, I can just click send if I find an interesting article and share it.
Mm-hmm.
I like on Sprout the Smart Search for keyword search by industry.
Ooh.
And it's basically a Twitter search, but it helps weed out and filter out a lot of the noise for me.
Well, and there's something to be said when you don't have to click, right? Because the more tabs you have open, really the more spread out your attention is, and it just gets to be too much sometimes.
I will not say the word, but I always have a lot of tabs open. Always. Like 30 sometimes, depending on what I'm doing. Oh yeah. Or I'll operate with 2 browsers. Normally I use a very large 25-inch monitor that I run my MacBook into, and so split the screen so I can run both browsers.
Well, that's just because you're fabulous. I bow down to you because I cannot do that.
I'm a big nerd. That's what it is.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're coming up on our 30 minutes, and we definitely want to respect everybody's time. So I will ask you guys to if you have any final words. Allison, both of you guys kind of wrapped it up really nicely and described what we should be thinking as far as what content we schedule and then how we interact, because when it comes right down to it, right, social media is there for interaction and building community.
Yeah, I think that, I appreciate so much Lisa's detailed look at the 2 platforms. I think it can be a little scary for a new blogger especially to get your head around getting on that and trying it. But Hootsuite, for me personally, when I started using it a couple years ago, was very intuitive and actually made things very easy for me to figure out. So don't be scared of it. Give yourself a break. Give yourself an opportunity. Give it a try. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you send out a tweet you didn't mean to send out right at that moment. That's truly the worst thing that can happen, and that's not the end of the world. We've all done that. I've shared Google Plus private things with people, so I mean, we do that stuff.
The only time it's bad is if you're under embargo from sharing something. That's the only time it's bad to send that tweet out. But honestly, for personal conversation, I log into Twitter on my browser. I just log in there and I can talk to people because it blocks out. I just filter and I just see it coming through. I look for friends. I look at my Twitter lists, which you can see on both, but it's something about logging into Twitter and that organic flow through their platform and their back end.
And, obviously we're focusing a lot on Twitter right now because Twitter moves so fast. Twitter is a thing that you need to publish to multiple times a day to get any use out of it and to be seen at all on that platform. But these Sprout Social and Hootsuite will also let you interact with and schedule from various social media platforms within one interaction.
Within one.
That's true. Good point. But I do love Hootsuite for live interaction.
For live interaction, that's what, I use it a lot for, especially, like I said, Twitter chats, Twitter parties, or if I just want to follow the IBM Think Forum has been going on in New York, so I've been following that today on a Hootsuite stream.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us this week. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. This is so exciting. And we'll see you next week when we talk about Triber with Jamie McKee.
Oh, very nice.